Hey, Pete here for Studio Live today, and in this episode 3 of my deconstruction of the EP Recoil, which is my new EP that was recorded 100% right here on GarageBand for iPhone. And today I'll be going through the second track on the EP. It's the third episode, which is called Falling, which is another very short track. So it's about a 2-minute track. And it's only got a small number of tracks. It's 8, maybe 9 tracks in here in total. So let's jump in and take a look at how we put this one together. So first of all, let's have a bit of a listen to the track itself, and we'll hit play. So in here we've got the piano and the bass to kick off. We've got a string. Just a string pad that kicks in there.
I don't know that I'm falling, know that I'm falling, know that I'm falling into.
And then the vocals,
know that I'm falling,
and our guitar,
know that I'm falling,
and drums.
Know that I'm falling in too deep. It's a matter of time
and that's about it. So it's a very simple track, as I said, and the track itself was written around the piano riff, so we'll start there. And once again, it's a good time to give you another tip. Well, the tip that I've given you the last few videos, which is try and put your tracks in order, because you can see here again that my tracks are not in order. They're in order of how I recorded them, which is not a great way to present them or to mix them. Anyway, let's play the piano part first. If we solo that with the button here, you can hear that we just have a very basic sort of piano riff with 2 chords that go through there, and that goes through the verses. If we click over here to that's the chorus. So through the chorus it changes to that. And then in the second verse it's going to kick into the same as the first verse, but with a little bit more complexity. So there's a little bit more in the bass, there's a little bit more of a rhythm in the treble part there. As we come down to the second chorus, same again, the key change that happens towards the end here, same again, and then back there to the starting riff. So that's the piano. The piano is like the bed of the track. It goes all the way through from start to finish. And to complement the piano, I've got a string pad here. So once the piano starts at the start, and then at this section here, if we hit play, you can hear we've got a very simple single note string that sits under that part. Just to add a little bit more to that piano part there. And if we come down here to after the first chorus, you can see that we've now got an octave strings that sits underneath, and in the context of the actual song, and then there we've got a little bit of harmony on that string part. When I fall at the wayside and stop. And we'll undo, because what we've done is moved the vocals. One of the tips I gave in my 10 tips for recording a song was the undo button is your friend. So inadvertently, I've shifted one of these vocal tracks, and that's what sounded very weird there. So if we go back and try that one more time and press play.
Just look around, I might have seen the trap, but sometimes.
And there you go. So that's just the string pad that sits underneath that. And like I said, very simple in the first verse there. I've done it again. And then we've got the harmonies and the octaves in the second part. Let's jump to guitars before I break too much more on this. So we've got 2 guitars in this track. We've got a rhythm guitar here and a lead chorus. The reason I call it chorus is not because it's in the chorus, but because it has a chorus effect on it. So let's listen to the rhythm guitar to start with. So this is a very basic pattern. This is just the strum, and you'll notice that up here, stop doing that, up here we've got a little bit of automation on here, which is just around the volume. So you'll notice that the volume drops off a little bit there as the song continues because I start strumming a little bit harder, as you can see. And what you'll notice there is that I've also brought in another strum. Oh, I've done that badly. Once again, the undo button is my friend, or moving that audio around. Let's see if I fix that up again. There we go. So you can see it can get a little bit awkward in GarageBand when you're playing around here. So there's the rhythm guitar section, if I can stop moving it about. And in the middle section here, so once we get to the second verse, rather than just being the single strum, we go to this sort of pattern here. And then as we come back towards the end of the song, we return to just the individual strums. So before I break more of that, let's go into the lead chorus guitar. So when this one starts its strumming here at the start, let's just hear what that sounds like in context. So the vocals are about to kick in here.
I don't know that I'm falling, know that I'm falling.
And here's our lead guitar. So the lead guitar, along with the rhythm, sounds a bit like that. Well, it doesn't sound like that because the rhythm's not playing there, but there. So this is the bit through the chorus. And then as we come back into the verse, rounding out, goes like this. So that's that second verse that sounds like this.
Know that I'm falling, know that I'm falling in too deep.
And the key there is that we've got a fairly simple sort of first verse, and then once we hit the second verse, you can hear that the guitars get a little bit more complex. The string bed changes, the piano part changes, and that's a really sort of key songwriting tip, is that if you've got a song, if you go verse, chorus, and this is obviously a very simple song, but the first verse is extremely simple. We then go into a chorus, we then go into a second verse, which has some of these changes in some of the instrumentation. It's not even different instruments, but it's just some enhancements to the parts that make the actual track sound a little bit different. So let's have a look at some of the processing that we have on these instruments. So you'll notice here that these two guitars do not have the amp simulator attached to them. So what I've actually used here is the acoustic guitar recording, just in a regular sort of audio recording mode. And the reason I did that is that I wanted these to be very clean guitars, and I didn't want a whole lot of processing. I didn't want to have that amp sound behind them. So if we jump into the mixing here and go into the plugins and EQs, you can see that we've got a compressor, we've got some track reverb. Let's have a look, the compressor, like that. We've got some track reverb on there, and then we've got the visual EQ where we've carved out the bottom end, carved out a little bit around that sort of 500 to 1K, and then we've boosted some of the treble on that guitar. If we have a look at the other guitar, then we've got the same sort of thing. We've got a compressor, we've got the track reverb, we've got a chorus in this case, so that's that chorus effect that's on that guitar, and then we've got the visual EQ again with a similar sort of setup there. So there are our two guitars, and in the video on the top 10 tips for recording in GarageBand, I did mention this as well, but don't be afraid to just record, not necessarily using the amp or anything that you think you'd have to do for guitars. You can record just using the regular audio recorder and then add in whatever EQ and effects that you want to after the fact. Okay, let's have a look at the vocals here. So what have we got on the vocals? So the vocals don't kick in for a little while here, so we'll solo those out.
I don't know that I'm falling, know that I'm falling, don't know that I'm falling in too deep. Know that I'm falling, know that I'm falling, know that I'm falling.
So there's our vocal. That's a lead vocal we've got there, and we've got BIG, which I'm assuming I meant to write BG, background vocals, which is the harmony part of that vocal as well. So let's just play both of those together from the start of the vocal kicking in.
I don't know that I'm falling, know that I'm falling, don't know that I'm falling in too deep.
All right, let's have a look at what we've set up on the vocals here. So if we go into our effects again, we can see plugins and EQ. Once more, we've got a compressor set up for the lead vocals. We've got some tape delay, and we've got our EQ, where again, we've sort of carved off the bottom end a little bit around that 500 to 1K. We've got a tiny little treble boost in there for the lead vocals. And that's about it in terms of the backing vocals. Same sort of thing. We've got a tape delay, stereo delay, visual EQ there again, where we've done kind of the same sort of EQ. In fact, I've probably just copied and pasted those across. And we do have a noise gate on here. Now, I'll do another video at some stage on the noise gate, but if you've not used a noise gate, basically it means that when the microphone is picking up some noise that is below a certain level, so you can have your threshold here set at a certain decibel level, what it will mean is that it won't be playing back that audio. So it's good to use when you've got something like a background vocal that's not on all the time, but you want to make sure that you're not actually hearing that in your mix when it's not actually happening. You can do it with automation to drop the volume, which I'll show you with some lead vocals in another video soon. But if you want to use an automated solution where if you're just hearing a little bit of background noise, it'll cut that out, noise gates can be your friend. Okay, so that's our vocals, our lead vocals, and our background vocals. Come down to bass. Bass is pretty straightforward, and the bass sounds a bit like that. The bass is just using one of the bass guitar cabs here. So this particular one, we've got a compressor on the actual bass amp, and we've done a little bit of EQing to boost some of the mids there. We'll just stop that for a moment. That's something to really consider, is that because when you're using one of these virtual amp simulators in here, you've got a compressor on there. You'll notice I don't have a compressor on the actual track with the plugins. Reason for that is that we've already got a compressor here. If I added that there, the compression on this track would go kind of nuts, and we don't really want that. We do have a noise gate on here as well. That's the wrong button to press. Go back in there. We do have a noise gate, and in terms of the EQ, I'm just pulling down the treble quite hard there and cutting out a little bit of the mids just to make sure that we can really get the bass firing on the bottom end there. Let's jump out again, go back to our track, the last track here, and if you watch the video on the first track in the EP, you would have seen the drums there that I actually used Drummer for. In these ones here, I've actually programmed the drums myself across 2 tracks. So if we go to this track, first track here, and solo that, you'll hear there's our bass drum or our kick drum, and then our snare. And then the other track here, the second drum track here, because what I tend to do if I'm programming drums manually, I'll do a bass and snare and crash or toms are often in this first track, and then the hi-hat I'll put in a second track here. So let's go to the second drum track here and hit play. And we've actually hit the chorus part where the ride cymbal comes in there. So let's turn this other track back on. So if we expand those out, you can see there that we've got the hi-hat happening down here, and then we've got the kick and snare and the toms and crash happening in that first track. And if we stop that, so let's go in and edit those just to show you what that looks like in the actual editor. So this is what we've got here. So we've got the kick and snare down the bottom here, the toms and the crash. So that's on the first track there. And then if we jump in to the second track, this one here, and we tap again and go Try that again and go edit. So these are our hi-hats and ride cymbals that we have throughout the track. There you go. So let's go right out of here, put everything back on. So one thing that I did want to actually show on this before we finish up on this video is that if we go to this lead vocal, what you'll notice is that we've got a little bit of reverb on here.
Falling, know that I'm falling, don't know that I'm falling in too deep. Know that I'm falling.
So you can hear that reverb on the track, but if we go in and have a look at the actual plugins and EQ, we've got some tape delay on there, but we don't actually have any reverb plugins or EQ on the actual track itself. If we go down here to the master effects, you'll notice we've got the echo and the reverb here. So if you've been using GarageBand for any length of time, you'll remember that previously we didn't have the ability to use plugins on each individual track. You just had a master effect of echo or delay and reverb that you could use across the board, and then you could add certain amounts of those to each track. So that's exactly what this is. So if we jump in here and we go to echo, you can see here we've got this dark quarter note echo, and then the master effects under reverb, we've got a medium hall reverb, and that's how much of these are dialed in. So these particular echo and reverb will be the same across every track. If we wanted to add these to others and we change what they were, so if we change that medium hall to a large hall, that would be across all of the tracks. So it's a good way to just sort of dial in some delay or some reverb, and that you can add to a bunch of different tracks if you wanted to. In this case, I've used it here just because I liked the sound. I wanted that quarter note delay for this particular vocal, and I wanted to add a little bit of reverb there. So I've decided to use the master effects as opposed to the plugins and EQ. Could have used either, probably just old habits dying hard there that I've used the master effects. So that's just a one sort of bonus tip here, is there's sort of two ways that you can add effects on any particular track. But just keep in mind that once you change that, then it's going to be the same across all of your different tracks there. So that's the song Falling. Like I said, it's a very short track, verse, chorus, verse kind of structure, and I like it, and I think that it was a good one, a good example of how to use sort of just a small number of tracks here in GarageBand to produce a nice sound and a good track. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks again for watching.